Welcome to Money Convos, where we discuss personal finance and investment tips. We're committed to helping people create wealth and achieve financial freedom. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. All right then, let's head into today's conversation.
Hello, Adam. How you doing?
Hello, Elikem. I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm great, my brother. Doing well.
I see you sent me a message, but I'll get back to you on that. Okay.
No problem. No problem. Speaking of seeing things, I just saw on your a tweet you had replied to with the usual what's this guy's name? Shadow Kwame response. Charlie, it's just interesting. So Doomso is happening here.
Charlie, they know they won't agree, but Charlie, how you go do it?
Hey, Charlie. Will it ever be good? But well, anyway.
You can only hope.
Is that what? You can only hope.
Exactly. What?
Charlie. It's interesting. Anyway, well, what is it? 67 years of independence and counting, so it's all good.
Oh, Charlie.
There's hope.
Oh yes, there is.
Yeah, some other countries are 300 plus. At least we are just 67. So
we'll
manage it.
Anyway,
speaking of managing things, today we are going to get back and have a conversation about some basics of personal finance, or basic tenets here that is necessary to help people manage their personal finances. People normally call this a budget, but here we want to call it a spending plan, not a budget. I feel like a budget sounds too restrictive. It has a certain negative connotation among many people. But at least if we call it a spending plan, it gets more exciting because you make your money, you get to choose how you spend your money. And that's all that plan is helping you do, making sure that money is going where you want it to go. So we'll get into that in a quick second. Adam, any thoughts on this topic as just first thoughts about this topic, budgeting, spending plans? Any questions that you feel like have been raised by other people in your normal engagements with at church or in town?
Okay, so Elikem, I think the topic is very important, and the general it's a basic concept of personal finance, if you ask me. But it's something a lot of people struggle with probably because of the way it is approached. And also in these times, in the last couple of years, especially 2022, getting to the end of 2022 into last year, we had a terrible cost of living crisis, which I don't think we are really out of yet. But it seems as though it's a little better because at least inflation has dropped. I think I saw something about today. Inflationary rates dropped also. I think so. So it's not as terrible as before, but people are increasingly having to squeeze their monies and not being able to see where it goes because everything is so expensive now. So one of the questions that really came to mind, and even myself, how I went through quite a difficult period. People want to know, even in these difficult times, how do you still budget and how do you still stick to it? And I think other people too would be interested in some practical tips that they can bag to help, or some hacks that they can use as they go through the budgeting process. Or when we talk about budget, we are also talking about spending plans. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that's what we are here to do. We are going to talk about all those tips and tricks and hacks to help people hang in here. As you were talking about, like what the situations that have gotten people thinking about spending plans even more, got me thinking about this word inflation. To anyone who may not be aware, inflation is when the general prices of goods and services increase. So last year, you may have bought a tin of milk or a can of milk for let's say 5 cedis, and then this year you're buying it for 7 cedis. It's gonna buy 2 cedis. That's inflation at work. So we all know about that. Prices rarely ever stay constant. They always go up. So that's inflation for you. Well, in some economies, I guess prices go down, but not in our Ghanaian economy. Okay. And then there's another thing that you mentioned, which I think is the key thing that we want to address in this conversation: margin, or allowing yourself some wiggle room. And by this, what we mean is, yeah, you could have a budget, everything is going on well, and then inflation increases, or there's some hardship going on, and you realize that your budget is just thrown out of whack. You don't have any wiggle room. You earn 5,000 CDs and you spend exactly 5,000 CDs. So now that's prices have gone up, your rent has gone up, transportation has gone up, food costs gone up. Now you are realizing that you need to spend 5,500, 6,000, 6,500. So the question is, where does that wiggle room come from? You know, if you go ask your boss for an increase in your salary, that won't happen anytime soon. So where do you find that wiggle room? We're gonna call that margin. So hopefully the tips that we'll talk about today would help prepare us to have some margin, as well as follow our budgets diligently. Somebody we really admire, and if you've been listening to our conversations the last couple of weeks, Dave Ramsey, he says something about personal finance, and he said it's 20% knowledge and 80% behavior. So most of the stuff that we'll talk about, I'm pretty sure people know them already. So it's up to us to just start practicing them. Just do it. Build the behavior. Start small, and instill that habit in you, so that in some months to come, you'll be fine. It will be just muscle memory. You just do it without thinking. And in some years to come, you see the results for yourself, and you'll be doing way better than someone who didn't. So yeah, we're gonna start this conversation by talking about the things. Well, actually, let's start by talking about how to budget. And I feel like we've had many conversations about how to budget, but let's just get it out of the way. There are many different types of budgets, and some people put money in envelopes and say, "This is how much I'm going to spend." But I think that overall, it's all about sit down, write a plan, know how much income you make, and then make a list of all the things that you'll be spending money on. You could do it in categories, or you could do it item by item: rent, utilities, food, transportation, clothing, anything. Also, how much you save. All those items, just write them down. Eating out, entertainment, gifts, tithes, all those things, write them down, put an amount by them, and make sure that the total of the money that will leave you in that month should be less than the total that is coming into your account. And speaking of total of the inflows, you may have, yes, your main job, your salary, yes. But if you have side gigs, you have other sources of income, add it all to your budget, so that you see the holistic picture and you ignore anything. Some people tend to do some mental accounting. Okay, the money that comes from here, I'll spend it on that. That's all good and well, but you need to, in your plan, write them all down so that you can account for every CD that comes in as it goes out. So in a nutshell, I think that's pretty much how to go about your budgets. You could use apps to help you, and we'll talk about those in some later in the conversation, exactly how to go about them. But Adam, what do you think? Any thoughts on the basic premise behind spending plans?
Yeah, Likem, I think just like what you said, the most important thing is being able to track every income, and most importantly, the expenditure. So every single thing that you are spending your money on, whether it's in categories or in particular line items or whatever, you can make sure that you do that, you track them all. It might be necessary to take maybe about a month or so to observe and write down everything that you kind of spend your money on. That's quite a difficult exercise, but it's worth it. Then you'll be able to know the ones that happen maybe every month, and the ones that maybe are just one-off expenses and what have you. So if you're able to do that, you'll be able to list. That will make sure that you are accounting for every single thing that you are spending on.
Yeah, good one. I like the prelims of tracking your expenses for a while. So let's get into the next phase of the things that prevent people from following a budget or a spending plan. I think the first thing is not having a budget. If you don't have one, you can't follow it. So that would be the simplest thing. So if you don't have a budget, first thing you need to do is get one. We'll talk about various ways you can get a budget in a moment. But if you feel like you've attempted it and it's not working out, a good place for you to start is get on Instagram, look up at investment_friend. That's investment friend. Look them up on Instagram and they can help you draw a budget. They can help you one-on-one, sit with you, look at your individual situation and come up with a reasonable budget for yourself. So just follow investment friend on Instagram. That's at investment_friend. Okay, great. So you could use many tools out there, apps. There are apps that will help you. I use Rocket Money, but I understand that maybe in the Ghanaian context, it may not be so helpful. It links to your bank account. I think our banks in Ghana may not have that kind of data and access. So you could, if you're thinking about apps, you could use there's an app every dollar. There's another one, YNAB. That's you need a budget. YNAB. There's another app available on both Android and iOS, Money Manager, Expense and Budget. So just search Money Manager, you find that app. In fact, there are a lot of apps out there. If you don't want to pay for anything, just look out for the free ones. Start something. They would usually let you do something basic for free. So go ahead and start. And then if you're not so high tech or you want to keep it simple, there's plain old pen and paper. Plain old pen and paper. Just start writing things down. If you want to take it a step further than pen and paper, there's Excel. Those of us who are working on our computers every day, chances are you'd open Excel quite often. So you can just start using it. It does good math, simple math for you. Even if you're not familiar with Excel, but you work with a computer every day, that's an opportunity to just start using Excel. Just type out stuff in a nice table and it will do some easy summations for you. It's really not that difficult. It's the difficulty is in getting the behavior. First, forming the mindset to say, you know what, this is important, I'm going to do it. And then sitting down to go through all your expenses. I think some people find it scary to go through all their expenses. And that brings me to the next point that I want to mention. Tracking expenses. Adam, you mentioned this in your beginning statements, right? About people spending the time, maybe a month, to track their expenses. Have you ever come across a situation where either you or somebody you were afraid to go see your expenses, or you saw it and then it shook you? But once you start seeing the numbers, it's a different reality. Has it ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, for me, I think when I began my journey and then I started tracking, it put a lot of things into perspective for me because especially with things that we keep doing repeatedly. Maybe it could be some 50 CDs here, 30 CDs here. But what what shakes me is when you put it together and you see how the cumulative effect, you'll be surprised that, so maybe eating out, then you spend some 2,000 or 3,000 or something. If you just put all those 100 CDs here, 150 here, things together, you see how maybe in a period of about 3 months, this is the amount of money that has gone out of your hands, and like, whoa, and you'll be surprised. So I think that is why I normally encourage people to do that exercise, because it helps to have some kind of a rude awakening. For a lot of people, they don't really grasp the fact that a lot of money passes through their hands.
True. A lot of money passes through people's hands. They go like, I got my salary and I just don't know. I don't even know where all the money went. Actually, it's you now. It's through your own hands that the money went. So before it goes, record it, or when it goes, just record it. Pen and paper, really simple. Or these apps, they can just help you track it. You may not need to write too many details. Just write something down. Put something down. Today I spent XYZ on these items. Today I spent 100 cedis on fufu and tilapia soup. You write it down. Nothing too giddy giddy. Yeah. Another thing that people miss is, I'd mentioned not having a budget in the first place, not tracking your expenses. But sometimes too much of everything can be bad. Some people can make a budget and they make it so tight, no wiggle room. And I feel like that also poses a risk, because if you keep trying to climb a mountain that you can't climb, eventually you give up. And then it just becomes, I have a budget, but you don't follow it. I have a budget, but I don't follow it because it's not realistic. So we need to be more realistic about the budgets that we make. And when we make realistic budgets, it's easier to follow. You know that if it's even easier to underspend than what you had planned for, because it was realistic. Maybe you know that how much you spend on transportation. If you are spending 700 cedis a month on transportation, in your budget, you allow it to be 800 cedis. If you have some left, that's great. If not, at least you know that fuel prices every 2 weeks they change. So you give yourself that wiggle room. Again, coming back to the margin. If you make everything so tight, when prices go up, you feel overwhelmed. You would be confused. You don't understand where monies went. But allow yourself to have that margin. Don't make it too tight. And sometimes the margin may even be just allocate the money towards saving, even if you don't want to overinflate prices of certain line items in your budget. Just allow yourself to save extra so that if necessary, you can go tap into that. But we'll get back to this issue of even saving. Adam, I have a question for you. It's looking at some of the issues that prevents people from following budgets. I noticed that one of them was people not adjusting their budgets to real life. Like some people would set up a budget maybe in January, with all their New Year resolutions, and they never come back to it. So, question is, what's the risk with doing that, and how often is a good idea to come back to look at your budget / spending plan, and why is it important to update it?
Okay, so Elikem, I quite remember some time when we were discussing something else, and I mentioned, and I think it's good to mention it again, that a budget is supposed to be like a living document. It's a work in progress. So you can't just say, oh, okay, this is my budget, and then I'm done. You set it in January, and then you go to sleep, and or you keep using it for the next 3 years, or you would just frustrate yourself. So it's regular review is very, very important, because our circumstances do change. And then, like we were even talking earlier in the conversation, there's inflation, there's lifestyle changes. There are so many things that could happen. And even, normally your budget will feed into your overall financial goals. Okay, I think we didn't mention it at the beginning, but basically your budget is sort of like a document that is flowing out of your general outlook in life. There are things that are routine, like maybe utilities, transportation, all of those things. But then there are some other unique things that will also have to enter into the budget. Like, let's say you are planning for further studies, or you want to buy a car, or you are thinking about starting a building project, or you are thinking about going to save up for a mortgage or something. All these things are goals that we could have that feed into our budget. So if circumstances change, maybe you get a pay rise and you don't go back into your budget to go and look at how maybe, can I pump in some more money into my retirement savings or into some kind of investments or into my project or something. You will see that in the end, you just end up using up that money without even realizing it. Or you set a budget and prices have changed and you haven't gone back to review it. Next thing, you are frustrated because you said you were going to use X amount of money, maybe like we said earlier, maybe 700 cedis for transportation or for fuel or for something. And then prices have changed and it's not realistic anymore. You see that then your budget becomes an unrealistic budget and it will then frustrate you. So the review is very important. As often as you can, maybe every month, every other month, or at the worst, maybe, I don't know, twice a year. Yeah, something like, but keep going back to it because that way, you would be able to make sure that your budget is much more realistic. Another thing too with the review is that there's budgeted and there's actual. So yes, you've gone through the month, you budgeted to use maybe 50 cedis for something, maybe to buy a particular item or something, and then you went and it is more expensive. That will even help you to be able to feed into the general budget that you have done, to be able to refine it as you go along the months. Okay, so that it is not a static thing and you are there with estimates that are not realistic, but you are seeing the changes as it happens, and it also helps you to be able to pick up any negative, maybe because these are the times when you are having those budget reviews, you are supposed to be honest with yourself. Why did you overspend in this category? Was it because you were not much more disciplined, or it was genuine economic issues? You can pick up anything that could easily derail you quickly if you are continually reviewing your budget. Then you don't end up finding yourself in a terrible situation. Maybe you end up in some debt that was avoidable or some terrible financial decision that you take. Yeah.
Good one, Adam. Thanks for sharing that on the need to review your budget periodically every month. And a theme that keeps coming up is tracking. Okay, plan, yes, but you also need to keep an eye on these things. I recall a manager used to say, if it's not tracked, it's not. If it's not measured, if it's not tracked, it's not measured. When you're thinking about performance, all right. So you need to be able to track it. And recently, or some months back, I was talking to a friend about her work, and I asked, well, okay, you do this work, but how you may be feeling frustrated that your manager is not even appreciating your work, but how do you know the impact you are bringing to the work? It's all anecdotal. Henceforth, every day you do something, write it down, track it. That way, later you can come back and say, yes, I've contributed XYZ. So putting things down, keeping good records is something that we need to build a habit of. I know that people, record keeping is not, maintenance and record keeping are not our strongest suits. But if you really want to do well with your personal finance, you need to start doing that. You need to start keeping good records of how you spend, especially in the beginning, while you build the habit of following a budget. Maybe after 3, 6 months, when you are doing it diligently, you may not even need to look at it every single month. But for now, you need to start off by building the habits right. Okay, so one more thing on the planning end of things, then we invite Prince to hear some of his thoughts so far. Is planning for one-off expenses. Quite often, we think about our monthly budget in terms of the expenses that are recurring every single month. Then we forget that rents, maybe you pay your rents in quarterly or semi-annually or annual payments. You don't plan for it, and then that means you always have to scramble and figure out how to pay for it. Or children's school fees. You don't plan for it because it's one off that comes every couple of months. I think a good idea, or some ideas for one-off expenses like car insurance, If you have to pay your property taxes, giving the side eye to Adam, property taxes, is it land use, all those things that are one of. Set up sinking funds. What's a sinking fund? Okay, maybe let's assume you earn 5,000. Okay, if you don't earn 5,000 yet, I'm praying that you get there very soon. Let's assume you earn 5,000 and your running expenses every month, everything is 3,000 cedis, and you're able to save 2,000. Okay. Out of that 2,000 that you are saving, you need to know the one that is going towards long-term investments and the ones that are going towards short-term for future expenses. Future expenses, you know that you'll be paying school fees 3, 4, 5 months down the line. So maybe 500 of it will go to a different account, and we'll call that a sinking fund. A sinking fund is, you know, there will be a hole somewhere. So you just store up the money that you use to fill a hole later, so that when the time comes due, you put the money there. So that's a sinking fund. Basically saving up money for a very specific purpose over a period of time ahead of when you have to make that payment. You can do this for multiple reasons. If it will make sense for you to keep the money in separate accounts, great. If it would make sense for you to keep it all in one account, good. But at least let there be one separate sinking fund account where you know that, okay, all the monies for future expenses are going to this one. If you merge it with your emergency fund and all those other funds, it becomes tricky to separate them. If you keep putting it in your same investment account, it becomes tricky. You can always talk to your bank about opening another account linked to your name, and that would be easy to do. That way, these expenses don't surprise you. So as you are doing your monthly budget, make a list of the one-off expenses that you'll be expecting at least in 1 year, and then know how you spread the money up across all the months and be saving towards it. Okay, let's hear from Prince. Prince, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Ellie. How are you doing too?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Awesome.
This I know this topic is close to your heart. You had been advocating for us to get in there. So just to give you a quick recap of what we've covered, and you and anyone who's just joining into the conversation, we didn't go too much into how to do a budget. We just kept it simple. Just find a way to record. There are apps that you can use. There's simple pen and paper. There's Microsoft Excel. And in fact, on the Microsoft Excel part, when you can go when you're in Excel, go to File, New, like you're creating a new workbook, and then you can search and just type budgets. There are many budget templates in there that you can use. All right, so that's on the setting up side. And then we talked about the need for people to have a budget, not to make a budget that's too strict, to give them some margin, and the need to track expenses and monitor like one-off expenses too. But yeah, on the planning side of things, do you have any thoughts before we come to certain spending behaviors that people have that prevents them from following their budgets?
Okay, so thank you for the briefing. And for me, this is I think we spoke about we talking about this issue because as Daki Wadmos will always say, he always like going back to the basics, right? And the basis of our Christian faith is about believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and believing in Him, you are saved. That is the basic principle of our Christian faith, right? So with regards to building financial wealth, to the basics that we have always to look at is our budget. I know we've done episode on how to create budget and all that, which is not something that we are going to go into it today. But what I want to talk about is, I think when we were discussing, I was looking more on after you've created this budget, how can you be able to know ways that you can create margin, looking at your budget that you have, how can you create margin from that budget? And I think when I joined, I heard Adam speak about that, and there are some stuff that I penned down that I also want to share with our audience and as panelists to also take some inferences from it, right. So the reality is, when you are on a journey to creating financial independence, it is not good enough to just match your expenses, your income versus your expenses. It's not that good, right? There is a higher one that you can look at, which is you being able to create a margin, right? So let me put it this way. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall, right? And it basically means that you don't just match your income to your expenses. You need to find ways that you can look within your budget and still cut down on certain things that will create more money for you to do other things. I get it. Because I always say that for us to create wealth, we need a commodity. We need money. How, if you don't have that money, how do you intend creating that wealth? You can't. So it's about you figuring out how you can get more money in creating the wealth. I get it, right? So I think Adam spoke about tracking your expenses. I mean, if you look at yourself, maybe you bring about, let's say, a 10,000 home at the end of the month. You need to look at where each and every expenses you are making is going into, right? And that is to say that I was listening to somebody who was talking about, we have the variable expenses and then we have the fixed expenses. Some of the variable expenses, it happens from time to time, but for the fixed expenses, you can look at it and still cut more of your expenses to the barest minimum. Right now, he was talking about some of these standing subscriptions that we have on our money, like the Netflix, like the Apple TVs, and certain things that at the end of the day is taking something out of your money, and it is over a period of time. Some people even pay for it, but they don't even watch it, right? But sometimes you look at how minimum the amount is, so you are not quite bothered, but it's over a long period of time. You can bear with me that it becomes very significant that if you were putting those money into certain investment vehicles, you would have, made some good returns on those money. So first of all, I'm looking at we being able to cut more of our expenses to create more margin for us. And in cutting our expenses, we should look at the fixed expenses, those that are necessary for us, there you can't do away with them. But those that you feel, even if you can't do away with them, you can still have a good life, right? So I have a friend who will tell you that he would never subscribe for Netflix. He would rather, even if it takes about 3 months for the movie to become downloadable, he will wait and download the movie. And I think sometimes it's a good thing. Somebody will tell, but the thing is new in time. You need to catch a glimpse of it before it becomes too old. I get it. But this is somebody who feel like I'm putting this money, I'm doing this course so that I want to save this X money so that I can, channel it into my investment, right? Good. So we should look at cutting our expenses. Another thing I wanted to talk about it is that we should also look at increasing our income. And that is where I talk about side hustle. My empathy level for people who don't have side hustle is very low. Very, very low. No matter how small the side hustle, even if it's bringing in like a $50 at the end of the month, it's money, right? Yeah. So we should look at increasing our income, because if you are increasing your income, that is where more money is coming in, and that is where you can channel those monies to certain type of investment vehicle. So let's look at that aspect of it. We have in our space like this, you have a lot of people who basically will always tell you, it's weekend, I'm relaxing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. When the person can, IT in our time has become so big that you can do certain things to earn certain side money that can come in to supplement whatever you make. You get it? Yeah. Because that's why I started with the reality is that when your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become a problem. If you are not earning that much, but you are spending more than what you are not even earning, it becomes a problem, right? And another way to match that disease is for you to increase your income, looking at a side hustle. I think we've done an episode on side hustle. We should go back and listen to it. Look within things that you can do that can bring something, no matter how small it is, bring home. It's something that we should also look at, right? Yeah. So I think I will end here for other people to come in into play, but we should have it in our mind that the secret to wealth is very simple. You live on less than what you earn, focus and invest it over a long period of time, and definitely you will become financially independent. Thank you very much, Elikem, for the time.
Thank you, Prince, for all those good points for how to create margin in our budgets. And I like those bars you were dropping. Said if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. I like that one. Yeah, it's a powerful one. But yeah, in a nutshell, we need to track our expenses. We need to, even with the important expenses, figure out ways to trim them. The ones that are not important, take them out totally. Things like subscriptions, those small ones, and then increasing the side hustles to increase our income. All right, great. Thank you, Prince, for those points. Adam, do you have any other ideas for how to increase margin?
Yeah, I think Prince has dropped all the bars now.
Everything. They said when an elderly man baths, the
Actually,
water is finished.
the water is
Can you
finished.
carry an ice cream, sir?
I beg you.
See, okay, it's all good. Then, yeah. So with that in mind, it's good for the planning aspect. We can start talking more about the behaviors that we have on the spending side, and we could just run through a bunch of them. On the spending side, there is. I'll lump these things together, and let's hear some reactions. Emotional spending. Maybe you feel like, Charlie, it's been a long day. I tire, I deserve this. Or impulse buying. You see something, anything you see, I feel like I have to have this thing. And then there's also this kind of related to emotions, but peer pressure and keeping up with the Joneses. Anyone wants to take any of these points to try to encourage people against them?
Really? So, can I come in?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So, for me, I always tell people, you should be able to live within your means, right? You should understand one thing in life, that whenever you conceive an idea that you want to toe a certain path, that path is you becoming financially independent. It's a journey, right? It's a journey. And that journey that you have decided to take, you should bear it in mind that it is not everyone who has that idea that I also want to achieve financial independence. Sometimes we try to think for other people. Maybe you can be in a circle of, let's say, about 5 people. Even if, let me take Money Convos, for example. If I take Elikem, I take Edem, I take Mimi, I take Siriam, I take Paulina. With the kind of discussion that we are having, you can certainly be sure that each and everyone wants to build towards financial independence, right? So being within this crop of friends, you know how to behave, because there are certain things that we share. Elikem would say this, Edem will share this, Mimi will say this. We bring all these things together to enrich our journey that we are undertaking, right? It is in the same way that you as an individual, the vision of you attaining financial independence might not be the same for all the people that you find yourself with. Even if let's say you take about the five best of your friends. I get it, because somebody want to just live the way they are, right? I attended a conference where the speaker was asking a guy that, so today, if you have money, what car will you buy? The guy said, I'll go and buy a petrol car because my I don't want to the people to see that I have money, so I want to use a low car to that is the mentality of the person. I get in it. When the man asked another person was like, oh, when I have this money, I'll first make sure that I secure my future by looking at investing significant amount of money into a portfolio. I get it. So you can see these two people, everybody have different mindsets when it comes to money. I get it. So in the same way, our spending habits should always be informed by the kind of journey we have chosen that we want to pursue. Right. So if you are somebody looking for financial independence, you will definitely know that there will come a time you have to deny yourself of certain things in the medium to long term. In the short to medium term, let me put it that way. Right. There are certain things you need to deny yourself because you want to create more money that you can invest that money towards your financial independence that you want to attain. I get in it. And you should understand the income that you are bringing in, the expenses that is going out, how you are not going to, spend more than what you are already spending by looking at ways that you can cut on those expenses to create more money for you to invest. So for me, spending this emotion, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens, but if it becomes something that is repeating itself, then you, as an individual, you need to look at it and make sure that you are cutting on some of these things. Because me, for example, I think last I used, and I was telling a friend, when I tell people that I don't have debit card, people don't understand. Now you, this young gentleman, why don't you have a debit card? Because when I was not making money, okay, when I was barely keeping up, when I started making money, okay, by God's grace, it's sometimes you feel like the money is there, so you can walk into some place, look at something that is nice, then you can buy without not thinking through, this thing I'm buying, will I use it? Why did I? Sometimes you can buy something and I end up not even using it. There are certain times I have gone to a boutique, bought suit. I was going there to buy one suit. I went, now the person told me, oh, this suit is nice. Oh, it will be good on you. Now I didn't make it like there. Now impulse buying, I just bought the thing. And I'll come and hang the suit there. I don't even wear it. By the time I think about I want to wear, then it's like I need to do some adjustment to it. I get it. So some of these things, so I told myself that if I have the debit card in my hand, me spending the money is inevitable. So I decided that I won't take a debit card. So I go the old-fashioned way. At the end of the month, I write my check and then go and take that money. And if I take that money, that is the end for the month. No matter what, I will never go back to the bank again. That is a check I have put in on myself that I don't want to spend unnecessarily within the month. I get in it. So there are certain things that me not having that debit card has helped me to do over a long period of time. You get it? So I will just say that we should look at ourselves. As you said, if you want to keep up with the Joneses, man, you need to really buckle up. Because there are some people who are spending that they are not the people who are really making those expenses on their behalf. But if you know yourself and you know where you are coming from, and you know that at the end of the month, no money is coming from anywhere, you try to live within your means. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prince. It's a major thing to pick up on, that is know what strategy will work for you to be able to stay within your plan. Prince's own is to avoid impulse purchases. What does he do? He doesn't buy. He doesn't have a debit card. One time we trip to the bank and the money is finished. It's finished. That's a good one there. Okay, that's great. Let's see. Let's take a few more things that I'm sure these ones people know them. So we'll just run through them. things like dining out frequently, buying food outside. If you can find a way to meal prep at home or eat at home, there's rice at home, There's rice at home. That's always an option to cut down costs. Not having financial goals, we've mentioned that impatience, it's kind of similar to the impulse buying, where when you feel like buying something, just give it some time and see if you still want to do it. Then some people don't seek help with their budgets in the years. They've been trying, but it's not working. So what you need to do is just follow Money Convos, keep listening to us, of course. And also a step further is you get on Instagram, look up at investment_friend. So investment friend, look them up and they can help you, sit down with you one-on-one, figure out what are some of the habits that are affecting your spending and preventing you from sticking to plan. All right. These are things that could help you. So you want to get the help you need. But let me just take us a step back in the process when we are thinking about, okay, when do you make a budget? And it dawned on me, I used to review my budget in the last week of the month or in the last week of the pay cycle when I'm broke. And for me, that helped me. It helped me to get ready for when the money comes. Because when the money comes, if you are now going to wait to budget after the money has come, Charlie, listen. There's a reason why they say penny wise, pound foolish. So I do my budget review when I just have pennies. That way I'm wise. And the budget is ready for the money to come in. So once the money comes in, the euphoria doesn't hit me too much. And I just say, hey, listen, go here, move what you have to move. And the first thing you should do, even if you don't have a budget, is if you didn't take anything from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you didn't like the book, at least one thing he said, pay yourself first. You've drawn your budget or you know how much you want to save, pay yourself first. People would advocate for different amounts. I think the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, advocates for 10%. So just whatever amount you want, a realistic amount, 10, 20, 30%, whatever it is, move it to the investment account ASAP. Let it be away from, not even your savings account. All right. Move it to where it needs to be, and then let the rest of the bills sort themselves out. I know it can be quite challenging. What if I move this money and then my rent, and then I have this bill, and then that? Yes, that's why you do a budget, so that you can move the money confidently. So if you've not drawn the budget, go back to that step. Draw the budget, track your expenses, keep reviewing them. And then also, as I was talking about sinking funds, and something you should be building up is your emergency fund. This way, your margin would be off your monthly expenses. If there's an emergency, you don't have to get frustrated. You have an emergency fund built. Start off with a target of 3 months of your expenses and try to build up to 6 months of your expenses. You won't build that amount of money in 6 months. No, it takes way longer to build it, but at least you are setting the money aside till you get to that point. All right. So yeah, those are a few of the tips for you. Just a few more tips as we start to wrap up. And pardon me if I'm saying any. In fact, let me hear from Edem. Edem, are there any other tips that you have to help people to follow their spending plan?
Okay, so Elikem, you were Prince was talking about how he prevents himself from overspending, and I was just thinking about it. I'm not too much like him, but one of the ways I do is to prevent myself from how do they call it? Impulse buying, is carrying less cash around. Especially when you have too much money on you, then the temptation to overspend is there. And just this evening, I passed through the mall, and then I realized that I started gravitating towards certain things that I hadn't planned to buy. So the impulse buying is actually real. So if it's possible, you can walk around with less cash if you have to use your card payments, you know you are not too disciplined with it. Maybe it is time to ditch the card, and then make sure that you plan your expenses very well. If you are going to buy something, maybe to do some shopping, maybe go with some list or something. Just make all those attempts to ensure that you don't overspend. And then with the issue of keeping up with the Joneses, I think Dave Ramsey made a, how do they call it? He said something. He says we spend money we do not have to buy things that we cannot afford. We spend money, we buy things we do not need with money we do not have to please people that we do not like. And it's something that kept running through my mind. Don't compare. If you compare yourself with people, then you set yourself up for failure, especially in this financial independence journey. So do you look at your goals and then follow it through and through? Like Prince said, there are certain things within the short to medium term you may have to deny yourself of. So delayed gratification is a very, very important thing in the whole budgeting process. Okay. And then also one tip I think I learned, I don't know, not too long ago, is to also celebrate your successes. Okay. So as you are budgeting and you are making room for putting your finances in order and everything, when you hit certain milestones, maybe as part of the budget, put some provisions aside where you can also take that small money and splurge on yourself just to celebrate the fact that, oh, maybe I was able to save consistently for the last 3 months or for the last 6 months. Okay, so I get to maybe buy myself some cupcake or get to buy myself some food or something, just to inspire you on the journey and to help you as you go through. So you can think about that to celebrate some of the small wins as you go along, and it helps to make the whole process an enjoyable one so that it doesn't look like it's just like you're trying to imprison yourself. But no, as you hit those milestones, you celebrate them, maybe with 1 day out or some chicken here or something. Just something little, just to inspire you for the process ahead. And that's also a tip that you can use. Yeah.
Yeah, just celebrate yourself with a little chicken man, pizza man. That's interesting. Ed, some of the things that you said, I can relate to them, but the one I can relate most is when you go to the mall and then you are gravitating towards certain things. One of my least favorite activities is going shopping, going to a shop to buy anything. Because when there are so many choices, so many things that you want, how do you hold yourself from buying them? So, and this reminds me of a fight me and my mom used to have when I was young, like in teenage times. And she'll send me to the store and I'll ask her, Madam, tell me what you want me to buy before I leave the house. Don't wait for me to get there and then you are adding on to the list plenty things. No. And when you do that, you end up in the store not with a list in mind, but with a mind that you're going to grab just anything that you see that you feel like you need. So for me now, when I go to a store, I just go with my list and I know where everything is. I just go straight. Just only look at where I'm going. Don't look left, don't look right, because everything has been arranged nicely to make sure that we spend money. So focus, okay? Focus when you go into the shop. Stick to the list and don't look left, don't look right. But anyway, a few rapid other points is
And then Elikem.
Yeah, Prince.
Yeah, so and also to add a little to just to let people know that sometimes your circle can also be an influence on what you are doing in your life, your circle that you find yourself with. So if you are somebody looking at this, and because sometimes some of these things, the impulse buying and eating out and some of these things, most often it's our friends that may drag us into it. Sometimes, oh, it's nothing, let's just go and eat, then you go. Right, I get in it. And I'll use an example. Like sometimes when I'm leaving home, there is food. My sister will tell me, oh, Prince, there is food. Because I am a rice person, so you can fetch some and take it to work and eat. Then, because of the tendency of, let's all go out and eat within the cycle of my friends, you go out and go and buy the same rice, the same rice that I could have brought from the house to the office. I go out and buy the same rice at airport. Before the minimum rice you can get 50, 55 cedis upwards. You get it? And then I'll go and buy their same rice. Then I go like, I get in, and the same friend, the friend that we will go, and then he normally take fufu, and fufu there, you know that you are almost hitting around going to 70 cedis, 100, and then the same, we will come to the office, and the same guy will be complaining, I don't have money. I was like, is this sensible? It's the same rice I could have brought from the house to eat, and I could have saved my 55 cedis. So from that period of time, I said to myself, I will take food from the house too. And I've done it. I've done it for almost a whole year. And I mean, I've been able to get more margin from the money that I will use to have bought the rice or whatever I'll eat at airport. I've saved those money. So we should also look at the friends we find ourselves in. They influence us a lot. Sometimes you might not know at your blind side, but they are really influencing us. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one. The friends the peers that we allow to pressure us, we need to be careful about them. Yeah. So yeah, a few last points before we get out of here is automate your savings. We mentioned that you should pay yourself first. One easy way to do it is set up a direct debit from your bank account to your investment account or to your savings account. Well, sometimes they call it a standing order, but basically an automatic transaction. You don't even have to interfere. Sometimes even your employer can handle that deduction and make sure that it's going to the correct account. It doesn't even come to you in the first place. So you have that to make sure that nothing interferes in there. Also, you can embrace days where you don't spend any money. One day, when you are leaving home, have the mind that today money is not leaving me, no matter what, and start doing it and see how many days you can go at a time without spending money. When you start normalizing that, you'd be impressed about what you do. I remember some years ago when I was working. Monday to Thursday is not a problem. It is Friday, Saturday. So then you start realizing the pattern. So look out for those days when you get a chance to not spend any money, and then you try to prolong those streaks. All right. And last thing, just on a lighter note, when I was mentioning like what to do before the money comes, there's something that I used to do whenever I received a bonus. No, for people who have like work remunerations where you are paid bonuses or certain one-off money. Some people budget with it, and something like a performance bonus, it's at the discretion of your management, right? So they always say, don't budget with it, but people always budget with it. I realized that in the first few years of my career, maybe the first two, I was always just spending that money. Of course, I'll put some aside, but the chunk of it is just spent buying something or, I was like, nah, this would actually be a good tool for me to invest. So with bonuses, I always kept my mind that I don't spend bonuses. Nah, I just don't spend it. Because when I was married, fine, a small part will go for vacation. The tithe towards vacation, the 10% or some 5% to vacation. After that, nothing gets spent, right? And even in terms of moving the money to the investment account, when the money comes, that large sum, I just let it just rest, let it breathe. Some people may have a different perspective, but for me, my thought was I wanted the excitement to get out of my system. When you get some huge amount of money, it's just you start getting so many ideas, but after a week, the excitement is gone. That is when you have a clear head to make your decision. So sometimes people say, "Oh, but you're losing out on the interest, guy." Listen, it's fine. Let the euphoria die out. How much interest will I even be making those few days or weeks that the money is just resting there? Don't worry. But that also requires some discipline to make sure you don't spend that money anyway. So yeah, it wasn't just chilling in my current account. I'll move it to the linked savings account so that I don't see it. But at least I'm not making any investment decisions in a rush. But anyway, so yeah, these are some thoughts that we have. So today's conversation has been really about back to basics, looking at the need for a budget, why it helps, talking about how to make margin on our budgets, and also how to stick to them. Dave Ramsey says with personal finance, it's 20% knowledge, 80% behavior. So we've given you that 20% that's knowledge here. The 80% of the work is up to you. It's up to you to follow these steps that we've given. And one of the behaviors that you can do right now to help yourself and to help your community, to help other people who are anywhere near you, is to follow Money Convos here on Twitter or X. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, get on YouTube, subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe there too. And if you want to play back any of our conversations, I think we've hit 100 videos on 100 episodes on YouTube and podcast. I told Dennis we need to find a way to celebrate it. Yeah, so there's a lot of content out there, a lot of useful information out there that you stand to benefit from. So go listen to that. And while you're on Instagram, follow investments at investment_friend. That's investment friend, where you can get a step closer in terms of the behavior and the actions that can be taken. You get these people to help you, talk to you, look at your individual situation, and guide you towards what will be beneficial to your situation. So yeah, thank you all for making the time. Thank you, Prince, for bringing up this topic. Thanks, Adam, for sharing your thoughts. Thanks to our audience, very faithful audience, for spending this time with us in your midweek. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week, and catch you same time next week. Have a good night and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.